right, so end of quarter one, time to like check in some way. And I was trying to figure out how I wanted to check in this time because like I've read significantly less new things this quarter than I have previous quarters, which isn't like a bad thing. I guess we'll find out after we do this how I actually feel about my reading, but I don't think my reading's been bad. I just think my life has been weird, so I'm not reading as much as I usually do. But I'm still reading a fair bit, and I do still feel like I'm reading things that I like. And there has been quite a few rereads, and we're really not going to go into those today, but I've been rereading a lot of Cosmere stuff, I've been reading a lot of Jemison, and that's taken up a fair bit of my time. And in general, when I was looking through my story graph, there are 4 authors that I'm for sure leaning on a lot this year. So Sanderson, Jemison, bunch of rereading, and then Bejeweled and T. Kingfisher. So that's what I've been doing, and it's generally been working. But what I thought would be fun is, we'll definitely get into the best and the worst, but I only read like 18 books, so we could easily tier rank that and see how it falls. So I'm going to do a tier ranking. It'll have 4 tiers: new favorite, great, solid, and disappointment. And I want it to be clear that these aren't really going to necessarily align with star ratings. So like a disappointment, I could maybe put a 4-star in a disappointment. And we'll talk about it when we get there. Obviously, a disappointment can also be a 2 or 3-star. But for the most part, I've been better at DNFing. Like the 2 things that I think I DNF'd this quarter, one was Reaper's Gale, which I pivoted to restart Malazan with Gardens of the Moon. And then the other one was War Child by Karen Lawachi, because I was just feeling a little bit like it was halting my reading momentum, and I wasn't very invested. So it wasn't bad, but I just wasn't doing well. So I mean, getting better, and I've already this second quarter DNF'd like 3 things. And you'll see that if you watched my Friday video on the nebulas. So let me set up the screen record and let's get into it. All right, so starting with all the hidden paths, which honestly, where has the year gone by? I would say that this is solid. I truly forgot I read it, not because it's bad. I read it at a time I needed an audiobook while I was shoveling and doing stuff, and it fit the bill. I think I didn't like it as much as Strange and Stubborn Endurance, but it doesn't mean it wasn't a worthy successor. You can see myself rereading A Strange and Stubborn Endurance, but I cannot see myself rereading All the Hidden Paths. Even though I think All the Hidden Paths is a very strong continuation of the first book in that like romantasy duology situation. We have Bride. That was great for me. Caveats being, I read Bride after I had to put my pet down, so I was very sad, and all I was doing was staring off into space on my couch. And like the book was next to me, and I would occasionally pick it up, and when I picked it up, it was like 100%, this is escapism, thank goodness. And I was surprised, because normally when I read Ali Hazelwood, I love the romances. I like have a lot of fun with the tropes she plays with. They're like catnip to me. But this case, the romance was fine, but I actually wasn't reading it to get to the next romance scene. I was actually finding the weird paranormal world building cozy. Like, it wasn't realistic. It wasn't grounded in anything, but it just reminded me of things I used to read growing up when I was trying to escape. And it reminded me of the stuff that I like from Sarah J. Maas when she's not writing 800 pages for no reason. So I really liked Bride. I'm excited for when we get the second book. Be fair warned, if you have not been on fanfiction, it's not an Omegaverse book, but it has elements of it. And if you don't know about them, like I didn't, you might be like, what in the world does that mean? And, might lead to some awkwardness. The next one is Sitakanda, which I will also consider to be great. Is it better or less than Bride for me? I think they're about the same. I think I'm putting it below, if only because Bride, like I put a lot of emphasis in my reading experience on what book made me want to read, and although I enjoyed Sitakanda, I wasn't like finding things to do to use my audiobook time. Really like Sitakanda though. It's the 3rd Miles book that I've read, 5th Verkosigan book. In this one, if you like Ivan has some great moments in Sitakanda, let me tell you. And we actually finally get to meet this part of the universe that we've heard about in previous books, and we get to be in their culture and its messed up nature, and it's very cool. And a lot of these books in the Verkosigan world that I talk about, like, they are very contained adventure plots. And like, yes, the world building keeps building on each other, and same with like the characters and relationships and things like that. But this one, I really like the whole, we haven't even gotten off the ship, and Miles has somehow gotten in trouble politically. It's amazing. Clockwork Boys, I would also say is great. I think I want to put it above Bride. This one I read in my car ride when I went to Massachusetts to visit in March. And I really liked this one. I enjoyed the get the team together. I really liked the tension between the two love interests. The banter that T. Kingfisher does is always amazing. There were scenes that I was laughing at in the car. Fantastic. Just really enjoyed it. I know there are some people who don't like that it just kind of ends. I didn't mind it. Like, yes, I wanted to read the next book, and I did within a couple days. But I honestly felt like, yeah, so the goal of this book was to get to that place, and we got to that place. Cool. We did the thing. And actually, I'll actually get the Wonder Engine up right now. I'm going to actually put Wonder Engine, stop that, E in disappointment. Not because I rated it lowly, but because compared to Clockwork Boys, I did not like Wonder Engine as much. And I really couldn't put my finger on it. Like, I was not trying to pick it up. I was reading other things instead frequently. It took me forever to read. And I don't know why. It's not that much longer than the first book. It's the same characters. I think part of it is there was some relationship angst in Wonder Engine that wasn't really vibing for me. I did not understand why our main character was being so weird. And I think it's within character. Like, I mean, I'm sure it's not actually out of character, but it wasn't fun. Like, I didn't have fun with it. It did have a twist that I liked. But all the stuff that I really liked about the setup in Clockwork Boys wasn't delivered well for me in the Wonder Engine. So that's why it kind of was a disappointment, both because it kind of broke up my reading momentum, and also I just wasn't satisfied with where the arcs of the plot and the world building and the characters kind of went. Like, there were things that I really liked. Like, there were chapters that I loved, but it just wasn't the same as Clockwork Boys. Don't Fear the Reaper is a new favorite. I might actually be picking up the third book very soon, like maybe within hours of finished recording this video. This is the second book in the Indian Lake trilogy, the J. Daniels trilogy. I don't think it's called the J. Daniels trilogy, but the first book is My Heart is a Chainsaw, and I love these books. I love this community. I love J. Daniels. I love playing with horror tropes. I love what horror can do. I think it's being done exceptionally well here. It has a great blend of theme and camp, and the pacing is great. I read the climax chapter of this while working out on the elliptical, and it was amazing. And just pure happenstance. I didn't plan it. Such a good memory, such a good time. Elysium is really solid, and I'm going to put it above all the hidden paths if this tracker thingy will let me. There it is. This one's weird, but it's been on my TBR forever, and I bought it last year at my bachelorette. We went to a bunch of bookstores. We went bookstore bar hopping, essentially. And I saw this in the wild. I'm like, I've been wanting to read this for years. So I picked it up, and I read it, and it's so weird, but so cool. I wish I could say it's a book that I keep thinking about, but that hasn't really been the case. But while I was reading it, I was like, where is this going? And I was satisfied with the little bits of answers that I got. In general, this is a book where you know you are in a computer simulator and things are going weird to try and tell this story, and it keeps getting told in slightly different ways. Our characters change gender, relationship dynamics with each other, the setting changes, and you slowly learn why this story was put into the atmosphere and what's been left behind. And I really like the project of it a lot, and its weirdness, I think, takes up the appropriate amount of space. Like, it's 200 pages. Any more than 200 pages might have been overwhelming, but for 200 pages, I was like, this is so unique and cool, and I thought it had good payoff. I really enjoyed it. Freedom Isn't a Constant Struggle. Yeah, that's a great book. This is more of a collection of essays. I listened to them because Angela Davis does the audiobook. Yeah, it's both cathartic and validating, and also I learned a few things. We had a discussion with Jess Owen on her channel for her book community read if you want to know more of our thoughts. Into the Riverlands, is it solid? I'm going to put it as a disappointment for me. Not because it was bad. Again, disappointment does not mean bad. I finished it. Mainly because I really like the first book, and I think the second book is really solid. And there was nothing wrong with the third book, but I was just left wanting more. Like, I think there's a reveal in it that to me felt so obvious from the beginning, which is fine. Like, you're allowed to, like, predict a thing before it happens, but that means it can't all be, like, feeling like the payoff is that reveal, which is how I felt it was. So, yeah, that was interesting. And I just felt like that was the whole point, is like there was action, which I'm not big on action, and then there was that reveal, which I guessed within the first 50 pages. And so I was just kind of like, I don't know why I'm consuming this. And I was just listening to it while I cooked dinner, and it was fine. So I was just a little disappointed because of the other books in the series. Like, I know Mammoth at the Gate's different. I'll still read it. Everyone keeps yelling at me about that in the comments. I get it. I will read it. But this one, I don't... It's one of the ones where, like, I don't quite get the hype. And part of that is I'm not an action person, and this was definitely a high-action installment. Jackalope Wives. That's a new favorite. So that's a T. Kingfisher short story collection that I adored. That made me want to read. That one I read multiple short stories at once, which is not normal for me. And I think it's a great taste tester for T. Kingfisher, her style. If you want to know, is she an author for me? I think it's a great way to try out her takes on alternative fantasy, horror, old ladies. It's so good. It's so good. And like, she does such cool things with like American fantasy, which is like not a thing you get a lot. Like, there's like the Southwest of the United States gets this really cool interpretation of how it interacts with fantastical folklore elements. I want a whole novel in the world that she put together in a couple short stories there. That was so cool. Never Whistle at Night. I'm going to put a solid. I definitely wanted it to be a more for me collection. That doesn't always happen. I definitely had more misses than hits in this anthology, but that is the nature of the beast. I really liked my discussion that we had in the Discord and the video for Patreon. But for the most part, it was a lot of work to read, which isn't bad. I don't mind doing things that are work, but it does, like, that's just kind of how I rate my reading experiences, is sometimes if things are more work, they just don't make it to that high, because I have things that are work that I still just always want to read. Like, that is the type of person I can be. I will get to one of those books. But sometimes if it's work and I'm not engaged, it gets a little further down the list. Oh, Rose House is a huge disappointment. Did not vibe with that. I love the Texcalon duology. I have reviews for both of those books. My Memory Called Empire review is like 25 minutes spoiler-free, because all I can do is discuss those themes and how much I love them. Rose House, I just don't think it knows what it is, or it doesn't know enough for me. Like, I could see people reading it and I guess be fine, but what's unfortunate about this is how it's published is it's really hard to get it for free. Like, you can get the ebook for like $7, but that's still kind of pricey for an ebook, especially a novella. You cannot get the physical one, and I don't think most libraries have the physical or the ebook for you to get. And so I spent money on it, and I rarely spend money on books, and I was just like, it's a noir mystery that's not really a noir mystery. It's a haunted house that's not really a haunted house. It's an AI story that's not really AI. I cannot tell if this person's crazy or not. There's a lot of discussion about architecture that is like, whoo, way over my head. So it just, like, it never landed for me. Like, there were moments at the beginning where it's like, this is super cool. I really hope it pays off for me. And it didn't, which was, like, a bummer. The Deep Sky, I'm going to put as solid, mainly because I read half of it in a day, and I really wasn't prepared for that. Like, the world building of this book does not make sense. But I liked the relationship dynamics between the characters. I liked the close circle mystery-ness of it all. Like, I legitimately was on the edge of my seat at the end of that book being like, yeah, but who did do it? Like, was the reveal perfect? I don't know. Does it make sense? I don't know. Was I engaged? Yes. So solid. Solid sci-fi space thriller, which is exactly what they wrote on the tin. So what are you gonna do? Imposition of Unnecessary Obstacles. This one's great. Sequel to The Mimicking of Known Successes. I like Platy and Massa. What stops this from being a new favorite is that Platy... This is similar to, like, Slate in The Clockwork Boys and Wonder Engine. I think sometimes they're a little bit too much like me. And it's like, I don't want to read about me. Like, I'm with myself all the time. But in particular, Platy is so insecure in this installment in ways that I am insecure. And it's also, like, ways that I work to actively stop. But that said, I do really like the story. I like their dynamic. I will read as many of these that come out as they do. I really like this novella series. The Tainted Cup, I'm going to put at the low end of solid, but it is close to a disappointment for me, even though, again, I give it 4 stars. The disappointment in this video is not, like, I think the only really low-rated book is Rose House. Really didn't like Rose House. The Tainted Cup, though, like, I've read every Robert Jackson Bennett fantasy. I haven't read his horror. And I love them all. And this one was good, but I was just not as invested as I wanted to be. And a lot of that's on me because it's a Holmesian mystery. And I am not a mystery person. But the world is so cool. That's what Robert Jackson always does. He always brings me in with a really interesting world. Like, there are kaiju. That's so cool. I don't think they're called kaiju, but I call them kaiju. They are big monsters that come out of the sea. They are cool. There's weird relationships with plants and modifications of people. It's an awesome premise of a world, but we are just stuck following mysteries that I just didn't find particularly interesting. But I actually even do like the main detective and our main character, and I like their dynamic when they are bantering with each other. I will read more in that. That's why it's not a complete disappointment, but it's by far not my favorite, Robert Jackson Bennett. The Vor Game, also great. I don't remember. I think I like it a little less than Sedekanda. Maybe? I don't know. I really like the Vor Game. I really like Sedekanda. Miles is getting in trouble. Like, what are you going to do? You get to meet the Emperor a little bit in this one, which is kind of fun. Just Miles just does things, guys. It's a great time. Too Like the Lightning. That's another new favorite. And that's one where I'm just like, I can read things that are work and have a fantastic time. And that's Too Like the Lightning. I couldn't put that down. That was so fun. I just adore that book. Easily my favorite book of the first quarter. Excited to get to the sequel. Like, of these two books that are at the top, I'm struggling to decide whether to read the sequel of Too Like the Lightning or the sequel to Don't Fear the Reaper next. And part of that is why I haven't picked up either of them, because I just don't know what to do. But I love it. And What Feasts at Night we will put at great... we'll put it above this, but below Bride. I really liked listening to this in the car. I was driving basically through fog too, so lots of vibes. And I like a good ghost story, and that's kind of what this one is. Ghosty story. I have a video for actually the imposition of unnecessary obstacles and the What Feasts at Night. It's like it's my review, but also reviews I have collected from people in the booktube community, so you could figure out, are these series continuations for you, especially because they're novellas. So that's like my new reading in a nutshell, and for the most part, it feels very balanced. If we're looking at this. 3 new favorites, 3 disappointments, and a bunch of stuff in the middle. I would like more favorites. I would. And I'm working on it. It's just not been in the cards. I mean, I have been rereading favorites. So if we add in my rereads, they're all favorites. Like Way of Kings, Words of Radiance, 100,000 Kingdoms, The Broken Kingdoms. Like, all of those would be in the top row. So I do think I'm doing okay so far. I would like to figure out why my momentum's not still, like, going. But we'll get there. But that's my first quarter. Let me know any of your thoughts on these books, any thoughts on your first quarter of reading, what you've done that's worked for you in keeping your reading momentum going. Like, it's not even a matter of, like, make sure you have time to read. It's more for me, like, make sure I'm finding books that make me want to read, and that's, like, a little more nebulous. But that's it for this one. If you want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, pick an emoji that relates to one of my top 3 favorites. So Too Like the Lightning, you could use Lightning, Don't Fear the Reaper. There's definitely horror slasher emojis you could use. And then Jackalope Wives, you could use a bunny type emoji. So pick one of those 3. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.